We've been hearing a lot about Diddy's orbit and how at the height of his fame, everyone wanted to be a part of it. Cassie spoke to this testimony today when she was discussing her experience with Diddy in the hotel rooms. She was asked, quote, "Why did you want to be around Sean?" Her response, "I wanted to be around Sean for the same reasons as like everyone else at the time. It's just this exciting, entertaining, fun guy. I'd also happened to have my career in his hands." My next guest is a former longtime business associate of Diddy who knows what that orbit was like, having worked with him for years. He helped launch Diddy's cable channel, Revolt TV. Ramon Dukes joins me now. He's also the CEO of Polaris Universe. You know, you knew him since you were, what, 18 years old?
Yeah.
You know him well.
Yeah. You know, my first impression, my first day in the music business, I happened to meet him. It was introduced in the Victory video with Busta Rhymes. And,
wow.
That was something that he literally remembered, about a couple years down the line, we had the opportunity to work a little bit closer together. And, he's definitely supported, my personal career, and I've seen him support other people's important career.
One person whose career he was supporting, because she was signed to a 10-album deal, Cassie Ventura.
Correct.
Talk to me about that dynamic. What was she like in your observation or interaction with him?
Cassie, she's a really nice young lady, really cool. She's one of those people is really easy to get along with, really nice looking young lady. But she's also like, you could be one of the guys as well. She's a real good vibe, and she happened to be talented. She's really, really talented. She started with Ryan Leslie. They had a huge hit, Me and You, which was at the beginning of MySpace. MySpace was like the birthplace of social media. That kind of got Puff's attention. Those two collaborated on her debut album, through Atlantic Records, and then from there, Puff kind of took the reins. And one thing about Puff, on the music side, he's the biggest guy to notify a hit, so he knew he had something on his hands.
Yeah.
And that's just something that they just continue to work on, over the course of the years.
They talked about taking the reins, changing management at one point in time, and also that he really was in control of her career. Had to do kind of a busy list every day, busy work. She recorded albums all the time, and music, nothing ever got released before an actual mixtape. We also heard an emotional and at times disturbing testimony from Cassie today, as you well know. She's alleging physical violence and assault. She talked about being dragged, kicked. We also saw this video. Did you ever witness violence at the hands of Diddy, or Puff as you're calling him, towards Cassie or anyone else?
Absolutely not. At no times, was any of that energy around the business, around the workplace specifically, And I worked with him in different capacities, and I know other people as well who's worked with him longer than me, and that's something that's kind of been divided. We look at it as that being like, this is this man's personal life, and which we treat that, as far as with protection and respect for everyone.
Oh, you compartment. So you essentially, you say business was one thing, but his sex life totally different. His relationship's different for you.
Correct. But
you're also, I don't want to, yeah, but you're also just, I don't want to, but you're a man. Did you see that dynamic at play with women?
Did I see which?
That dynamic at play with women? Controlling or otherwise?
No, not necessarily control. He's a really passionate guy, and I think that, the recipe has speaking for itself. You're talking about like big successful, collaborations, etc. He put his fingerprints on, but, I think he loved Cassie, and I'm pretty sure she loved him too. We're talking about a relationship, at the same time. Like we're getting a peek inside this man's personal life, which so happens to be an artist that we signed to. Now, a lot of people might say, that's something where you don't mix business with pleasure, but she's a really successful talent, and they happen to have a liking for each other.
Speaking of successful, talented people, there's a big number of people in the industry who are leaning in, paying attention. You don't hear a lot from people defending him publicly. Why?
The thing, I think that it comes back to what I was saying as far as having that respect and playing your own space. This has been a conversation, as far as I've been doing journalism for about 30 years, specifically within the urban space. This is something that we've never seen transpired to this magnitude ever before. And I think that the first initial reaction is that it's kind of caught everyone off guard. So people are being careful how they respond. Because one of the main concerns is if this can happen to him, this can happen to other people too. Because in some people's eyes, they look at him, when you put the cards on the table and you're talking about this is what he's charged for, but this is where the conversation is, these are two different lanes. You know, somebody say, hey, I could easily fall into a similar situation, so I'm gonna sit back and be quiet, you know, for the time being, until I see how it goes. Now, in the beginning, you know, it looked like there was a lot of energy, like, you know, really going against him. And not saying that that shifted at all, you know, and much respect to Cassie. You know, she deserves her justice for whatever it is. But, you know, more recently, you talk about a year later where we've seen like all these people, you know, all these lawsuits, and then you got Jay getting involved and stuff like that. Now people are, they're more closely examining the situation, and they're like, well, what is he in court for? Why is he in jail? All these things that's going on out here, like why is he being in jail? And you know, again, if you know Cassie, and I say this again with all due respect, like the visuals in my mind, they got along. You didn't see any issues. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe more skeptical now than silent. We'll see about why. Thank you so much. Really intriguing to hear that conversation.
Thank you.